Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. It's my great pleasure to introduce a special guest from London, a key figure in Europe's venture capital landscape, and someone who's been at the forefront of scaling some of the most promising startups across the region. Please join me in welcoming Kristweide, co-founder of Isomer Capital, one of Europe's leading fund of funds investors. Chris, welcome to Korea.
Well, I want to say something before we talk what we're going to talk about. Isn't it marvelous that there is venture capital and there are entrepreneurs around the whole world? We've become very secular in our focus of country focus. Venture capital is a global sport. And companies are started in Korea and they move to the US. Companies are started in Estonia and move to Saudi Arabia and go to China. And that is the core of venture capital innovation. So I'm here to tell you about Europe, but I'm not here to promote Europe. I'm just going to talk about a few things about Europe.
Yes. And I think your visit is such a timely visit, especially as interest in Europe's venture capital ecosystem seems to be growing rapidly among the global investors. So since we only have 15 minutes for our conversation, I'll jump right into the questions. So let's begin with a big picture, Chris. Europe seems to be gaining more attention from global capital, especially in this so what we call Trump 2.0 era. In your view, what's driving this momentum, and how does Europe's venture ecosystem fundamentally differ from those in Silicon Valley or Asia?
Well, in one sense, it does not. We provide capital to amazing entrepreneurs, and they build amazing companies. It's just that it isn't just in the US, it also happens around the rest of the world. One way to think about venture is the duration that it's been going. So you think about the US, it's been going 60 years. One way to think about that is that 60 years of failure, because as a result, they become extremely good. Now, the way to think about Europe is they've been going for 30 years, and they've also been making lots of mistakes, but become better at it. One interesting statistic is that of the 400 unicorns in Europe today, 50% are repeat entrepreneurs from successful European startups who have gone on to IPO, gone on to exit at significant valuations. And in a way, that virtual circle of venture capital is one of the most important ingredients, because if you've done it more than once, the chances are you will be more successful the second time. Venture capital is a really simple business. You invest, it's a cost, and you try and exit at a premium. There is an ingredient about Europe that's rather special at the moment, and it will not last. And that is your entry cost of amazing companies is typically 20, 30% lower than the US. And what has happened in the last 5 years is the exits have been at a similar level. So if you go and ask Cambridge Associates, for example, what are the pooled returns of European venture and US venture, and you get a surprising result that in some cases Europe exceeds in its performance.
Well, what about the unicorns? You said there's 400 unicorns in Europe. What about 10 years ago? How was it?
So it's a 20x improvement. So when we started our firm, Isomer Capital, which very simply invests in venture capital firms across the whole of Europe, one of the annoying things about Europe is it's 50 micro Silicon Valleys. And they're all epicentered in the major cities of Europe. And when we started Isomer Capital, we noticed there were 20 unicorns. But they were Spotify in Sweden, they were UiPath in Romania, they were TransferWise in Estonia, and we thought, we're going to have to cover the whole of Europe. So there were 20 10 years ago, and there are 400 today.
Wow, it's hard to believe the unicorns were so quickly emerging in Europe. I think your answer naturally leads to my next question, which is related to innovation. Europe is showing a true leadership in sectors like AI, biotech, and defense tech, and even quantum computing. Could you share some examples or insights into how European startups are setting the pace in these deep tech areas?
Well, I want to repeat what I said at the beginning. We're not necessarily leading, but we have some amazing companies. And as investors in innovation, you should not be ignoring Europe. Biotechnology is a very big area, and this is the confluence of AI and machine learning techniques and life sciences. And there are companies that are understanding how a protein works. And if you do that, then you are able to design up to 10 to the 20 different molecules for the purposes of healthcare, for the purposes of food and agriculture. Now, a company in Europe that is in our fund, and actually we made a direct co-investment in, had a wonderful closing line when they were raising a round recently. They said, please complete this round by the end of the week because we're off to Stockholm to get our Nobel Prize. And if that isn't a good sales pitch to close a round, I don't know what is. Also, we have some very exciting AI companies. Now, I thought it would be interesting just to show you all a very simple example of two companies in our portfolio. One is called Synthesia. It's a London-based company. It has over 100 million revenue. It's only been going 2.5 years, and it creates video avatars. The second company is called 11 Labs, and it creates speech from text. You bring the two together, and you get the following. Could we play the video, please?
영상 부탁드립니다.
오늘 여러분과 함께 유럽 벤처의 중요성에 대해 이야기하게 되어 매우 기쁩니다. 10년 전인 2015년에 두 가지 일이 일어났습니다. 손흥민 선수가 토트넘 하스퍼에 입단했고 유럽의 유니콘이 7개나 있던 시절에 아이소머캐피탈을 설립했습니다. 2025년 손흥민의 팀이 17년 만에 유로파 챔피언스 리그에서 우승하며 토트넘의 첫 우승 트로피를 안겼습니다. 이소메르는 10주년을 맞이하며 93개의 VC, 펀드 투자, 261개의 포트폴리오 기업, 그중 54개의 유니콘 기업이라는 성과를 달성했습니다.
So those are amazing European AI companies, and isn't it wonderful? The process is a very quick video recording of me learning how I speak, and then we write the text, and then you have the video, and it can be in any language. So that's interesting.
That's definitely impressive. I must say, hearing about European venture ecosystem in Korean generated by AI really drives home how far this technology has come. And it's a perfect example of how deep tech is no longer confined by geography or language, and how Isomer Capital is helping push those boundaries. Thank you for that. And let us talk about the international LPs. Since there are so many great startups in Europe, I guess the Korean LPs and even Asian LPs will be so fascinated to see the investment opportunities in Europe. Amid growing interest in Europe's venture ecosystem, it seems the region is becoming increasingly open to new LPs. What changes in recent years have made Europe such a welcoming environment for international investors, including those from Korea?
Well, it's really simple. It's returns. So European venture is now becoming a reliable asset to make venture-style returns. And just to remind you, venture returns is at least a 5x return on your capital, and that is now consistently happening, and that is what is making LPs interested in Europe. But there's another point, and the other point is we welcome LPs and investors from around the world. Think about this. The largest country in Europe is Germany. It is still very small compared with the US, which means every single European entrepreneur needs to be global if they want to build a billion-dollar company. They need help, they need support, they need capital from around the world to help them go on that journey. And coming to advanced consumer economies like Korea is an extremely good idea, particularly when the US becomes maybe a little bit less attractive. Now, I just want to finish, maybe not finish, but finish this subject on the US. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe has woken up after a deep sleep in believing that it had Big Brother US at its side. This is no longer, and this has nothing to do with tariffs, this has to do with trust, and it's changing. And this is a very positive dynamic. It will have three fundamental benefits to Europe. Number one is that companies will start buying from European technology companies, so you'll see regional champions of technology companies and not just relying on US. You will see more and more people coming to Europe. I read in the Financial Times this weekend that the UK department approving study visas and approving professors coming to stay in the UK is at an all-time high in Q1 2025. And that is a really interesting point. The third one is also the fact that we're very open about IP. And that's a really, really important point when we think about investing.
I think those 3 points are the ones that Korean LPs were curious about when they think of a European investment scene. And I think Isomer Capital definitely can help them adapt to European VC ecosystem in terms of investing. So let's zoom in on to Isomer Capital. How does Isomer help new LPs access top-tier VCs in Europe?
So we're in the business of meeting venture capital firms on a continuous basis. We typically meet about 400 VCs. For everyone's input, there are 3,000 VCs in Europe. And we're meeting physically about 300 a year, and we invest in about 8 or 9. The thing we decided to do with Isomer was have an open platform, both in terms of making co-investments with our portfolio VCs and offering both the fund investments and the co-investments to our LPs. So many of our LPs come to us because they have not invested in venture capital in Europe before, and they want a partner. They want someone to help them understand where there is good venture capital input for them. Where are there good co-investments? What are the technology trends? And this is the focus. It's why we have Korean LPs. It's why we have Asian LPs and Taiwan LPs, because we like to partner with them. We want to help you understand Europe.
I think Isomer can be a great partner for our new Korean LPs that are interested in European investing. So finally, to wrap up, if you were to give one piece of advice to Korean investors who are looking to gain foothold in European VC venture capital scene, what would it be, and how can Isomer Capital be a strategic partner in that journey?
Well, the first thing I'd say to you is start looking at Europe. Start looking at European venture. This golden moment of relatively low asset price and reasonable exits will not last forever. Inevitably, Europe will continue to grow in its capital, and therefore it will become more competitive, and we will eventually end up in a US environment where it's difficult to access, and that actually the prices are escalating all the time. I can't tell you when that'll be, but it will happen. It just is a natural law of venture capital. So start looking at it, and then talk to Isomer, talk to the other people who are from European venture firms here today to understand what's right for you. We believe that when you become an LP, you're kind of getting married, because you're going to be doing this for a very long time together. And so therefore, making sure you're the right partner on both sides of the equation is really, really important, whether you would want a fund of funds or you want a dedicated, focused fund because it fits your strategy. That's an important decision to make. But the number one piece of advice is start thinking about investing in European venture, however you do it.
My one very personal and last question for you. How do you view the European VC ecosystem would look like in the future, maybe 5 to 10 years from now on?
Well, we continue to evolve. We have just made our first investment in a VC that is using AI algorithms to make its decision making. So it will continue to evolve. The other thing that happens in venture capital is great VC firms progress and exceed, and ones that are less good die. And that's a really, really good thing. And it's important to understand that, yes, the AUM of European venture will grow, but so will the companies. I will predict in two things I'm going to predict, by the way, as a British person. But let me do the general one first. There will be Google-like known companies from Europe, if there aren't already, with companies like Revolut. That will happen in the years to come. The second thing I'm going to tell you is we'll stop talking about the UK and Europe, but that's a personal opinion.
Well, thank you, Chris. That was incredibly insightful. Well, we are excited to see how the partnership between Europe and Korea continues to deepen, and we look forward to more collaboration with Isomer Capital in the years ahead. Thank you so much.
Look forward to it, and thank you for your time.
네, 이렇게 영국을 기반으로 하는